Hi there, and welcome to the Play Therapy Circle. Before we begin, please note this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It does not provide therapeutic advice, and listening does not create a client therapist relationship. All views expressed are my own, and any case examples shared have been de identified to protect privacy. If you're seeking personal support, please reach out to a qualified mental health professional in your area. Hi, and welcome to an episode of the Play Therapy Circle. I'm Kylie Ellison, a therapist, clinical supervisor, and play therapy trainer, and I'm so grateful you're here. This podcast is a space for thoughtful, soulful conversations about child-centered therapy, play-based work, and what it means to show up with presence and compassion, both for our clients and for ourselves. Whether you're a seasoned play therapist, a student just starting out, or someone deeply passionate about working with children, you belong here. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Play Therapy Circle podcast. I'm your host, Kylie Ellison, and I am so glad you are here. Hey everyone, I'm back. I'm back on the mic. It's been a second. It's probably only been a week. I'm being dramatic. But I'm back. I'm back. I had an awesome week last week in Cairns in far north Queensland. So shout out to our Cairns listeners, wherever you are in the world. I had a wonderful time. I got the chance to present at the Early Years Conference in Cairns in far north Queensland. So that was awesome. I had the best time. But it's kind of ended 3 weeks of manic travel for me and my family. So I had my first day back kind of to normal life because I flew back yesterday afternoon from Cairns. So it's Monday here, you guys. Like, this is like me starting the week trying to be organized, you guys. And for anyone who's been listening, you know that's very hard for me to do. So I am rather impressed with myself that I am recording this at 7:30 on Monday night. Woo! This is growth, you guys. This is growth. Listen, we're not going to call it too early because probably next week I'll be busy and I'll forget. But so far this week, so good. I even went for a walk with my dog this morning. So for anyone who follows us on social media, you will see me checking in throughout the day. I've just made it like my personal life blog over on my stories on Instagram. So if anyone has Instagram and wants to follow along the hecticness that is my day, today I was just doing life admin, and I don't know if anyone else is like that, where you just pile up just the boring stuff that you need to do. So like going to the doctor, going to the chiro, I had to go to the dry cleaners, like, you know, the really exciting stuff that you want to do on your day off, right? But I got it sorted. So in good intention that for the rest of the week I will be organized. Let's see how the rest of the week pans out, to be fair. So hello everyone. I hope you've had a lovely couple of weeks since the last time I recorded an episode. How you all doing? I have a really exciting milestone to celebrate because it has been a couple of weeks and I literally just checked before I jumped on the mic to make sure I was up to date with the numbers. Our podcast is now in 70 countries worldwide. 70 countries. We are not even 1 year old yet. I have not even done 50 episodes yet. This is only episode, I don't know what this is, 42. This is only episode 42, you guys, and we are in 70 countries. So if you are listening internationally, if you are not from Australia, thank you so much for listening. Our newest country was El Salvador. So if you're listening from El Salvador, welcome. Welcome to the circle. We are international, you guys. We are just everywhere. So that's very exciting. So I love that child-centered play therapy is getting out into the community and getting out into the international community. I have to confess, I didn't think it would get to this many countries this fast. So there's that. It's grown a lot quicker than I thought it was. But I should actually check because I want to give a special shout out to kind of our main countries that listen to us, like our most listened to countries. The first one obviously is Australia because we definitely have our supporters here in Australia. The next is United States. So anyone from America, hello, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. You make up a big part of our listeners as well. So thank you so much for listening. I'm so grateful. Then the United Kingdom. So that's exciting. Woohoo! And then Ireland. Hello, everyone from Ireland. And then in fifth place, not that this is a race or anything, like I don't know why I'm saying it like that, but then Canada. Oh, and then Germany before New Zealand. So our Canada and German listeners are next on the list. Wow, that is incredible. Hello to everyone in countries other than Australia. I am here in Brisbane, in the Bayside area of Brisbane in Queensland, one of the states of Australia. So it is so lovely. I'm waving at the camera and you're probably listening on a podcast and you're kind of like, what is she doing? Apologies. I am waving to you over the podcast. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. I am truly passionate about child-centered play therapy. I could talk about it underwater. So I'm really grateful that you're happy to listen as well. Thank you so much. Truly, I genuinely didn't think I would get many listeners. So this is a big milestone for us. So I'm very, very grateful. So please share and follow our podcast on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get good podcasts. Please feel free to check us out on social media, Play Therapy Circle Podcast. I'm on Instagram. Feel free to come and join us on Instagram. And when I remember TikTok, I really have to get better at that, you guys. So this is a big milestone. So what we're going to do is make sure, we always do, but just to make sure I'm making an announcement of this at the beginning of the episode, and I'll make sure I say it at the end as well. But if you have a question for me that you would like me to answer on the podcast, I'm very happy to do that. I would love to be able to interact more with our Play Therapy Circle community internationally. So if you have a question for me, you can email it to us or go on our social media and direct message, I think is what the kids are saying these days. Yep, I'm 43 and I'm a geriatric millennial. Feel free to message us on social media or send us an email. So we'll put the email in the notes of this episode. So please send us an email. We love to hear from you. So I actually have 2 listener questions today. I'm beyond excited, you guys. Like I'm actually going to get distracted and forget about the content because I'm just so excited. So this is a big milestone. I've never done an episode where we have answered listeners' questions. So we're going to do that today, you guys. So all questions are welcome. I don't know what I have started though by saying that. I may regret that. If you all start emailing me, feel free. And I will get distracted and want to answer them all. So I would love that. So what I wanted to do for today's episode, as you can see from the title of it, is go back to basics. I am very conscious of the episodes that everyone loves the most, and it genuinely is around the key kind of core components of child-centered play therapy and also the neuroscience. So I will keep that in mind with future episodes. I thought I had a plan at the start of the year for episode topics, and then I always change it, like always. So this week, I thought I'd go back to basics and answer our listener questions. So we are going to truly go back to basics when we talk about tracking. I want to, I guess, reorientate those who are already in the space practicing, but also beginning play therapists who are currently training and want to know more to immerse themselves in their studies. This episode is dedicated to you. I think that when I think back to when I did my training 11 years ago now, 2015, I remember tracking feeling very clunky. That's going to be a word I'm going to use that may not mean or make sense to some people. When I say clunky, I'm mindful that what I'm describing is the skill of tracking in child-centered play therapy didn't come naturally. And I think that that's really important for us to normalize and acknowledge that when you are learning something new, it's going to feel uncomfortable. So I do mention that a lot when I am supporting and working with beginning play therapists as they go through their training journey. I do deliver child-centered play therapy training as part of my private practice. So I'm really mindful of what that journey looks like for beginning play therapists. And one of the things that I see over the course of their journey in learning to become a child-centered play therapist is in the beginning it feels really uncomfortable, but by the end of it, it's very natural. And I think that that really talks to the fact that with tracking, it's so much around practicing the skill. And I really do espouse to, if I've not said it before, I'm sure I did, but I'm going to say it again. I'm really mindful of the roots, I guess, of child-centered play therapy and the leaders in our space, most definitely being Gary Landreth and his textbook, The Art of the Relationship, really talking about how the skills of child-centered play therapy shouldn't just stay in the play. I'm paraphrasing, but shouldn't just stay in the playroom. It should be shared. And I made a point of saying that at the start of my conference presentation the other day, because I wanted to really show and evidence my intention behind being there, that I wanted to share the skills of child-centered play therapy with the early education space, for nothing else other than to explain that these skills are something you can use in everyday life. It is something that I use in all of my language, in all of my communication, whether it's standing at the grocery line, waiting for my turn, to get my food scanned. I don't know where I'm going with this story, guys, by the way, but I'm standing at the grocery line and, I might have a mum and a child, next to me. And already I might be using language like, oh, you're just showing me that one. Like that just, if they picked up something in the cart and they're wanting to show me. You know what I'm saying, right? I went for a walk this morning. I'm going to get a more tangible example. I went walking this morning with my dog, who is a bordering on 40 kilos or 40 kilograms. I don't know what that is in pounds. I want to say it's like 80 pounds. I don't know. I could be wrong. 40 kilograms, because that's what we say in Australia. 40 kilogram wolfhound. Love that for me, because she is very strong and I am not. And by the end of the walk, though, she is exhausted because she's unfit like me. So we were almost home and the most awesome experience happened. And when I say these skills live everywhere, they really do. Because this young girl, I want to say she was maybe 4 years old, dressed from head to toe in her school uniform. It was the time ready to get in the car and go to school by the looks of it. The mum was walking her into the car and she turned around. It was just gorgeous. She turns around and she goes, oh, hello, doggy. Like this to Molly from like across the road. Like this girl had good volume in her voice and it was very easy to hear. And I just said, oh, you're saying hi to my dog. Molly says hi. But like, right? Like just tracking. Even to the poor girl that was just saying hello to my dog. So tracking lives everywhere. And it is something that once you ingrain it into communication, you can't take it out. So I always say that when I'm treating people, I'm kind of like, I apologize, but I also don't apologize. Because this is something that can be part of your approach to building and connecting relationships with children. 100%. So what is tracking? Let's get back on task, you guys, because I have a plan for this podcast and I'm going off on a tangent talking about my walk this morning. Okay, let's do it. So when we're talking about tracking, we are talking about the skill of verbally following and reflecting what the child is doing and saying, without leading or without directing. I know that that is definitely something that beginning play therapists struggle with in not asking questions, not asking kind of leading or even open-ended questions, or starting with I. That can certainly be a beginning challenge. So tracking is really about showing the child that you're interested in what they have to say through play. They don't have to use any words, but we get so much information from how they're playing. I always say, and I'm sure I've said this on the podcast before, that the child doesn't save up their play just for the playroom. It isn't that they build this beautiful sequence of role plays and information that they share through play just for their 1 hour session with me once a week. The play of a child lives everywhere. It lives in the playground, it lives in the lounge room at home, it lives in their playrooms, it lives when they're waiting for mum to pay at the grocery store and they're starting to play with their toys. It lives everywhere. So it's really important that this is the first the first skill in child-centered play therapy that play therapists master. It's very much the foundational skill that all other skills kind of lead from. So it's really important as a play therapist that you spend that time practicing that skill to really feel comfortable with it. Definitely, if you have sat in roles previously or operated in roles previously where you were in the lead or you were the one that was expected to have the answers or the strategies or to provide a structure to the session that you are conducting. I know for myself, in the beginning, I've been working in the human services industry now for over 21 years. When I began in my profession, I worked in child protection. I had a job within the government and then I worked in non-government agencies for many years. And one of the jobs that I had was in-home support to families. So there would be clear kind of guidelines and expectations around goals and each week what you would be tackling in terms of a topic to progress, and show evidence of your work. So if you have had any of those kinds of roles before becoming a play therapist, it really is shifting the gears in a big way. It really is embracing a very different framework for practice that doesn't involve you being the expert. And again, one of the first things that I loved the most, and I know that many people feed this back too, when I became a play therapist, was the pressure was taken off me to have the answers. I loved that. I loved the fact that I didn't have to have a plan. I didn't have to have a worksheet. I didn't have to give psychoeducation every week to a 10-year-old because that never works. But I didn't have to have any kind of structural guidelines to what I was doing. And I certainly didn't have to have the answers. Because I find that, just going off on a tangent, I find that really interesting when you sit in that space, if that is your particular role, where if a client is going to discuss something in therapy with you, that you feel equipped to be able to have a response to that. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure as a therapist. And I think for me personally and professionally, it's really never sat well for me to be the person that has all of the answers for clients, because I've never really felt like any of the answers I give will be the most true for them, if that makes sense. So when we talk about, obviously, our humanistic Carl Rogerian way of being with clients, that very closely aligns with my personal and professional framework around working with clients, because very much in that Rogerian way, we value the client as the expert. We value that they know what they need to do, or they know what they need to unpack or understand. They just need a supportive space to do so. So anyway, what does tracking skills look like? It starts with you or you are. That is really important, that we are making sure that we are following our CCPT approach and protocol and framework for practice. So you've picked up that one, you've decided to play with that one now, you're looking over there, starting with you or you are. It's really important. And also making sure that we note that we aren't labeling anything until the child labels it for us. Again, we have a very strong framework around that, around not interpreting too early what the child might be playing. I have definitely found over the last 11 years, what has been really interesting in working with kids is that you can have certain expectations, or I guess kind of wonderings or thoughts, around what you think the child will play. And certainly for children who have experienced trauma, that can often be very straightforward, that you are given the history of the child, and so you are already anticipating certain types of play, certain types of trauma play based on their clinical history. And then I've had clients where in 2 or 3 years, they've only played one trauma session, having weekly sessions with me as the clinician. So I think that we can go in with certain expectations, and then kids will take us on a very different direction, which is why I love this so much, because we don't need to know. We don't need to have the answers. It's all within them. So what does tracking do? Why are we using these statements of you or you are? It really does communicate our core message. We have our tenets of CCPT, of congruence, empathy, and unconditional positive regard. But alongside that is that idea of I'm here with you, I'm present with you, and what you do matters. And we talk about that all the time, you guys. I need to put that on a t-shirt. What you do matters. And you matter as well. I don't know why I'm whispering. We want to then talk about how it helps build the relationship. And that's why it's a skill that can be used anywhere. Because if you are somebody who does go in and do in-home support to families and you're meeting a family for the first time, tracking is the perfect skill. It's the perfect skill because you can take that curiosity with a child and follow along their play to get to know them. And you don't have to have a structured activity or, certain expectations around what you're going to do in terms of engaging with that client over the course of your visit. You really can just use that particular skill to build that relationship quite naturally for the child. Certainly, it helps to support some of those basic human capacities that we talk about when we go into goal setting in child-centered play therapy. So I'm wondering, actually, as I'm talking out loud, if goal setting might be an interesting one for us to do a podcast episode on, because it certainly is unique in terms of what we do and base our goal setting on. I lean into Nancy and Jeff Cochran's goal setting approach, which they document in their textbook, Child-Centered Play Therapy. I'm a big fan of that textbook as well, if you haven't already read it. And they talk about the different layers of goal setting. So the first being symptomology reduction, and then the second being building human capacities. So when we can help build the child's autonomy by letting them take the lead and we follow, it helps in building some of those personal skills around self-direction, self-responsibility. It certainly does help us in our tenants to convey our unconditional positive regard. We have no expectations about how they're going to play or what they're going to talk about, and we very much let them lead so that we can show that we accept them for who they are. So some of those common mistakes, I guess, though, to kind of wrap up this topic before we move into our questions, is definitely over-tracking. And I think that can be something, it can be a really fine balance between wanting to track to show our interest and the child attempting to gain some control over the environment. So we're going to talk about that more when we get into our listener question. But I think it's something that is so important for us to really take our cues from the child and really notice what we've talked about before in terms of transference and countertransference. We can really pick up on that. And so then it can be a scenario where we need to pull back a little bit on that tracking, leave some space, take a breath. It's certainly important, though, that we don't stop tracking just because a child might be getting irritated or is starting to dominate over us. That's a very different scenario. But if we're doing it way too much and it starts to feel a little bit awkward, that's a moment to take a breath. Certainly labeling, that is something that will happen when you begin as a play therapist and you are stepping outside of your comfort zone. You are doing something different. And so it can feel a little bit daunting, I guess, is probably the word I want to think of, to just track without labeling. And also too, we know that in times of stress, we revert back to what we know. And so when we are potentially labeling, it often, I find, is a scenario where therapists are a little bit outside of their comfort zone, and so they feel like they need to kind of rein it back in so they feel more comfortable. Unconsciously, of course, this is not a conscious decision. And so then labeling kind of slips in, question starts to slip in, I wonder statement starts to slip in. So something to be mindful of, asking questions guised as tracking. I always say this, especially to my students, when you notice, what's the word? Oh my gosh, I'm having a moment where I'm like, it's 8:00 at night. I'm trying to find a word that I can't think of. The tone at the end, the inflection. Oh my God, I got there in the end. Thank you all for sticking around. The inflection at the end of a question where they'll go, you're playing with that one now, instead of you're playing with that one now. See how the inflection is different? I feel like anyone outside of Australia is going to be like, it didn't sound any different to me. Do you sound like an Australian saying the same thing to us? I apologize. Let me try it again. I'm going to try and do this so that everyone can hear me. Oh, man. I hate demonstrations, by the way. So when you are using an uptick in your inflection, that is probably not the right way of describing it, but that's how I'm going to describe it. The inflection uptick. Yeah, I don't think there's any other way to describe it. So when you're saying you're putting that one there, and it's like I'm making it really obvious now, you guys. So you're not going to do this, obviously, in practice. But if you do that at the end, instead of saying you're putting that one there, see how there's a difference in how it sits and it lands. It's very, the second one, when I did it, is very much around I'm confident in what I'm saying, and I'm kind of offering this reflection to you with no expectations for feedback. Because really, at the end of the day, it's not about me. I don't need to be reassured that I've got it right. It's up to the child, and the child is doing their work. So I'm just there to follow along. And I always say, when I'm teaching this, that if you're wrong, the child will correct you. So this is the rewarding part of being a play therapist, is that you don't get that beautiful moment with a child where they're like, thank you for seeing me. That never happens. Oh, or maybe if it has, email me. Tell me a story, because I've never heard that. No, I'm sure there is situations where that happens. But I always say that too. I don't know why I'm feeling a bit sassy tonight. I will often joke as well with students that I am one of those people that doesn't get presents from clients, which ethically is a great, kind of thing to not have to deal with. But certainly, I've worked with others, and my beautiful colleague Eva, I'm sure she'll remember me saying, often gets presents from her clients, and I'm like, oh, what is wrong? Like, do people not love me? Like, what is happening? So I reassure myself that maybe I've just done such a good job. They don't need to give me a present. But it's that same idea, right? Of kind of, I don't know where I was going with that, actually. Now that I say that, I have no idea where that intention was going, other than to say people don't give me presents. People don't give me presents. Why? I have no idea. Anyway, the inflection is important. So, that's what I was going to say, because they will tell you if you're wrong. So that's really important, that you are taking your cues from the child and give yourself the confidence to have a go. If this absolute, synopsis fire of an episode gives you nothing else, I hope that it gives you that confidence to have a go at tracking. That's the important part. Keep it warm, keep it natural, and practice all of the time. I say practice with your dog, with your neighbor, with your cat, whatever. You've decided to sit there right now. Okay, you've decided to have some breakfast. I don't know. You really can. Honestly, it is something that you can practice all day, and it's so important to have a go at it, to practice. Okay, I am beyond excited to read out our very first listener question. You guys, this is so good. This is so good. And what's even better, we received 2 this month. I know I've kind of been saying, hey, send some questions in, but I haven't really said it routinely enough. So I'm just so chuffed that we have 2 people that have sent through questions. And the first one is Terry from Ireland, which I just love. I love that it's an international listener that has sent in a question. You are so welcome here in the circle. Welcome, Terry. So thank you so much. I did check with her and make sure I had permission to read out her question. So thank you so much, Terry, for that. I would like to read out her question to you, and then we're going to chat about it. So I love this. This is so good. Okay, let's read it out. So Terry asks, can we take the idea of people-pleasing or neediness or giving commands or being controlling or silence or ignoring as when directed towards the therapist and use Bruce Lipton's theory of child development, going deeper through enlargement in reflective responding? When this behavior becomes apparent, so people-pleasing, giving commands, being controlling or being silent, how and at what stage do we respond? All 3 of these are relationship. I wondered whether doing this too early when trust is still being established, might not be the best time, although you might argue against this. Are these also unmet needs? Practical examples would be helpful. Thank you so much, Terry. I hope you're still listening because you emailed me this like the start of the month. So thank you for your patience in me getting to this question. I'm so grateful that you sent this through. Thank you so much. There is so much to unpack with this question, which is why we're putting it out there, right, as our first question to read out. And then obviously I have a second one to do as well. So I think everything that you have described, the people pleasing, controlling, and silence, when we're looking at it from Lipton's view of child development, where we talk about how in the first 5 years of life, children download without discrimination an understanding of relationships with others. So they're downloading through every experience, they're taking it on like a sponge. Every time they interact with an adult in their life, they are taking that on board to say, that's how you engage with others. That's how you respond to stress. That's how you respond to conflict. That's how you respond when somebody does something that you don't like, etc., etc. There's so many different aspects of relationships, right? So you have described all of them brilliantly in terms of what might have been that child's experience relationally. And it does get me curious when I do see that in the playroom, because they are all aspects of an understanding unconsciously of how relationships work, whether it's through people pleasing, whether it's through controlling, or whether it's through silence. I think all of them communicate the same thing in some capacity or some way, that those children may have experienced maladaptive attachment relationships or experiences that have solidified for them in the first 5 years of life that that's how you interact with someone new or someone different or another adult, which is what you are then experiencing in the playroom. So I really love that. I love that so much. So when we're talking about the different scenarios of what that downloading in the first 5 years of life might have been, it might be, I must please others to keep myself safe. We see the people pleasing. I probably said this before, Terry, so I apologize in advance if I've already said this. But for people pleasing, my experience anecdotally has been that I've seen that a lot with children who've experienced domestic violence. Why? Because in the first 5 years of life, through those repetitive interactions and experiences with other adults, either in the periphery, so just observing interactions between adults, or them having a direct interaction with an adult, that they've learned that the only way to keep myself safe is to make sure that everyone else is happy. Because as long as everyone else is happy, we don't have conflict in the home. And as long as we don't have conflict in the home, then my physical safety, my literal life safety, isn't at risk. So I've had that so often in play therapy, where children who have a domestic violence background will be more interested in how I'm feeling and how I'm doing than themselves. So they'll literally come into the playroom and say, and how's your day been? Are you okay? Have you had a good day? What have you been doing? What would you like to do today? Like literally, kind of word for word, exactly what I've seen in the playroom. So those people-pleasing behaviors don't come out of nowhere. It certainly is through those first 5 years of life experience, I would argue, has a big role in sometimes that consolidating or cementing for them their understanding of relationships with others being people-pleasing. As long as everyone else is happy, I'm safe. The next one, when you were talking about those controlling potential behaviors, so things like bossing you around, telling you what to do in the playroom, telling you to shut up, all of those things that happen, right, when kids are trying to gain dominance in their space. I often lean into, when I see that presentation in the playroom, the theory of locus of control. So then I also tie in my psychoanalytic lens too. So I apologize, I'm crossing over here a little bit. But when we see children who need to control in the playroom, it often relates to children outside of play therapy having an external locus of control. So when they come into the playroom, they want to experience what it feels like to be in charge, to be in control, because psychoanalytically they want to put us in the position of them. They want us to know what it feels like to be them. So they're going to come into the playroom and dominate over us, so we feel insignificant, we feel dismissed, we feel isolated, we feel excluded, because that's actually their understanding of the world based on those experiences in the first 5 years of life. Or I've had an adult that's role modeled to me that when you are in relationships with others, you are dominated over. So they are in charge, they are in the lead. Oftentimes, too, if you go into Dr. Peter Gray's research, I've probably mentioned that as well before in the podcast. Dr. Peter Gray is a researcher in the US in the decline of play. He has some fantastic videos on YouTube. Please check them out. He talks about that internal versus external locus of control, and what a lot of the literature talks about in terms of that external locus of control being so much around then potentially leading to anxiety symptomology. So if children feel like everything is happening to them, that they have no control over, there's often an increase in that symptomology of anxiety. So another thing to kind of consider when we're looking at that control element. And then when we're looking at silence, I think that's even probably out of those three, the most powerful, and for me as a play therapist, the most concerning. And why do I say that? Because generally speaking, when you have you get clients or children in the playroom who are completely withdrawn, silent, mute, so selective mute, not always selective mute, but sometimes, it often talks to they've needed to go within in order to kind of cope with whatever they've experienced or been exposed to, right? So in difference to other children who might be more aggressive, they might be lashing out if they're frustrated or angry with a situation. Children who go silent have actually kind of gone within as a way of, gaining whatever little control they have left in their life. That actually is more concerning to me because they're not actually communicating how they feel. They're kind of bottling it up, or they're kind of going silent. So it's often that children are getting the message through relationships with others, either in observing interactions with parents or other adults, or in their interactions personally with an adult, that it's not safe for me to express my feelings or my thoughts or my emotions. And so I need to kind of withdraw, in fact, to be safe. So I need to not talk, not make any noise, not be a burden, not be a problem to others. So I kind of shrink in the background. I find that more concerning. I don't know if anyone else agrees with me, but I would much rather a child that yells at me. I know that sounds really... I love my job, honestly. But I would much rather a child with, kind of high levels of aggression, who is communicating their frustration, than a child that is not. That's just my opinion. So are these unmet needs? Absolutely. Absolutely. People pleasing is often that unmet need for unconditional acceptance. They have learnt that love is conditional. It is conditional upon, pleasing others and making others happy, which we absolutely don't want that to be the case for a child. We want them to build their internal source of evaluation. We want them to build their independence, their self-direction, and their self-responsibility. So very important that we are helping to support them by explaining to them and expressing to them our unconditional positive regard of them, regardless of how they present. We accept them for who they are. The controlling is often that unmet need for safety and predictability. I feel like things are too chaotic outside of play therapy, and so I'm just trying to, in the playroom, gain some sense of consistency and control. That's why the toys are in the exact same spot every time, every week, so that we can provide that consistency to children. It often, I would argue, becomes one of the few places that are consistent for kids who are, say, in the child protection space, where there might be changing of workers, changing of placements, even other therapists, to be honest. So if we get that opportunity to work for a consistent amount of time and offer, therapy on the same day, same time, same space, same therapist, that's an incredible amount of predictability and routine for kids that can help regulate them. So it certainly does evidence, I guess, an unmet need around safety and predictability. Silence is often that they have had that experience of it being unsafe for them to express themselves, and so they're trying to feel that sense of safety. So there's maybe been potential danger brought about, or potentially rejection. So Definitely, I want to talk about your question, Terry, around practical examples, I guess, of how you would say it back to a child when we are certainly tracking, I guess, but also I want to acknowledge your question around the timing. I agree with you that I think that I often say, and this isn't necessarily written in any textbook, this is very much anecdotal for me, that I'm constantly information gathering. I think that that is really important in child centered play therapy because no two sessions are the same. And a child will progress through their therapy work at their pace and in their way. So I want to, I guess, kind of work at their pace to make sure that I'm not making assumptions or interpretations too early. Melanie Klein and Anna Freud would agree with me. That is very important that we are investing in the therapeutic alliance first, which is what tracking does. Tracking helps us for our skill that we've talked about today in this episode. It helps us to be able to do that, to build that relationship. So I certainly wouldn't go into, and I'm not telling you what to do. I absolutely want to make full disclaimer and disclosure on what to do and what not to do. I certainly would never, I'm too Rogerian for that. I would never tell you what to do. However, I think that it's important to go at the pace of the child. And we know that from our process. So I would certainly lean into taking a minute before we have decided, okay, one of the presenting issues for this child is people pleasing. People pleasing is one of those behaviors in the playroom that it's pretty obvious pretty quickly. And I say that because it very much often is around the child really trying to make sure that we are okay, trying to make us happy, or in their role plays trying to make sure that everyone else is happy. So it does tend to show up pretty quickly and pretty persistently if we've got a child that has started moving through the stages of play. So it's not something that you necessarily need a lot of time to think through before you have made the determination that they are potentially showing behaviors around people pleasing. Absolutely, always seeking clinical supervision is, the number one kind of best practice for us to get feedback from our supervisor before maybe doing some of that making meaning or going further in terms of those interpretations. But I think that enlarging the meaning or kind of going deeper too early can have an impact on that relationship potentially with the child. When we talk about the first stage of child-centered play therapy, what are children doing in that first stage? They're building safety and trust. They're taking their time in their way to build that sense of safety and trust so that then they can move to more of that deeper meaning and deeper work that they start to do in the second stage of play therapy when they start to test those negative aspects of self. So we want to give them that space. And I think it goes back to the beginning of my conversation in this episode when I want to highlight that it's so important that we are working at the pace of the child and not interpreting the play too early, because I think that it can certainly have an impact in terms of that relationship if we rush it. So really taking that time to work with them, to let them show us in their way is far more effective. And it really talks to us not having expectations around how many sessions that will take for a child to move through the first stage of play therapy, build that sense of safety and trust, and then be able to move into the second stage. It takes the pressure off us that we don't have to have the answers of how quickly that's going to be. We are taking our cues from the child. But I think that we don't want to rupture that relationship too early, because that will just obviously make it more challenging for us to kind of come back from if we have that. If that happens though, that happens, right? And so again, we need to be kind to ourselves as practitioners learning in this space, very much so. That if you feel like you've had a session where that trust has potentially been impacted, there's always the next session. There's always that next connection time. And that's the great thing, I think, about working with kids, is that oftentimes, not always, but sometimes they have purely forgotten. It's been a week in their life. They've had so much happen. By the time they come back next week, they're on to a totally different topic, which again is so much more about our stuff as adults, wondering, are they going to be okay with me this week? But also that we get this opportunity to be truly authentic and fallible, I think that's the way you say it, where we can make mistakes too. And I actually think that that's a really, really important part of child-centered play therapy, if not one of the most, because I think children at the end of the day notice when we are inauthentic. They will pick up on that. They really do. So if we can be our authentic selves, take that pressure off yourself to have the answers, to move kids through their play sessions, at a certain expectation of, how many sessions that's going to be. When I'm having an initial consultation with a parent, I'm absolutely not giving them a number. I just can't. I don't want to set the child up or myself to fail by saying, yep, and they'll just need a couple of sessions and I'm sure they're going to move into the second stage of play therapy. Children will show us in their way in their time. So certainly noticing and using tracking in the beginning of your work helps you to have that curiosity, helps you to stay with those tenants so that you can help to build that sense of safety and trust before you start to do that interpretation. I think having Dr. Bruce Lipton's research in the back of your mind, certainly for me, has been, kind of from my framework practice, pivotal, I think, in how I view children's unconscious processing of their experiences and certainly their relationships. It was really kind of the missing piece for me, where I was like, that's why kids do it, because they don't even realize that they're doing it. It's their program. It's their unconscious understanding. So I love that it has helped kind of tie together the pieces of the puzzle for me, and I hope it has for you too, Terry. The middle phase, when we are obviously going into that second stage of play therapy, we might then start to do some of that gentle enlargement where possible. And I think, again, kids just move through the different stages at such different rates. You are going to know individually with that child. But I think that the people pleasing is something, when we're looking at it as a presenting issue, that we're returning responsibility, we're using esteem building statements, we are really trying to build some of those basic human capacities around independent self-direction, self-responsibility. And we are patient with that. We are going at their pace because this is something that has been established with them over, repetitious experiences for years sometimes. And so you're not going to be able to change that in a couple of sessions or even 10 or 15 sessions. This is going to be a journey for them to relearn a different way of engaging. And I think that is kind of at the core of what makes child-centered play therapy so amazing, is that we get to, in real time, by being our authentic selves, help to rewire children's brains to experience a safe relationship with another adult. Like, how powerful is that? It's huge to be able to do that with no handouts or script or structure to the session or psychoeducation or activities. That's why I love it so much, because it's honoring that the child knows what they need to talk about, but it's showing how powerful that relationship between us as the therapist and the child can be. It's massive. And I think we underestimate that. So for anyone listening right now who is doubting if they are making a difference in a child's life, please don't. That's the short version. That's the short version of my motivation, because it's almost 8:30, you guys. I am getting up to 50 minutes on this podcast and it was supposed to be 30. Whoops. And we haven't even gotten to our second question yet. I think we might have to carry this over because we are getting way too long into this episode. But to finish Terry's question, I think that the gift of child-centered play therapy, there's so many gifts, right? But one of those gifts is that we get to be ourselves, we get to be authentic, we get to be present in the room with the child, and we get to hear their story, and we get to help them heal and to build those skills without us even giving one instruction. It's wild, because so much of what we are trained to do, say in traditional psychology studies at university or other, kind of practices, tell us that we need to have, answers ready. We need to have a bit of a plan or a structure or a treatment plan or whatever that looks like. And it's not the case in child-centered play therapy. How great is that? And that we can actually be effective is even better. So I think, when we're looking at certainly supporting the child in this space, when we start to do those interpretations to Terry's question, I think the guide is always the child's nervous system is one good way of thinking about it. We've been talking about that a bit in other episodes, not a timeline. I think that, going at their pace when they are ready for us to do a reflection shows that we have built that sense of safety and trust, and we can then go deeper. And I think that that's really important. So reflection always follows a relationship. I think that's a nice way of thinking it through. I don't know. Oh, I was going to give you an example, yes, of when we are actually reflecting those presenting issues back to the child. I think that people pleasing is very much one of those ones that is a great one to respond with in terms of facilitative responses. So, if I have a child that really wants to know what I think of their picture, we have our phrases that we say in child centered play therapy that you really care about what I think about your picture, but what matters in here is what you think and how you feel. That's a reflection back, right? Because we're doing that reflective, facilitative, responsive statements back to the child. The people pleasing really is about validating their feelings and letting them know it's so important to you that, that you understand how I feel about your picture. But in here, what matters is how you feel, because you're the most important person in here. That kind of emphasis on their feelings, their experiences, and building their human capacities around self-direction, self-responsibility is really the antidote, I think, to people pleasing. So being able to offer that reflection back, I think, is so important. When we've got kids that are using a lot of controlling behaviors in the playroom, I think this is like a whole episode on its own, to be honest, around responses to give. But I'll say briefly, I think that for the controlling behaviors, it's really about recognizing that they are struggling with not having control outside of play therapy, but they're also wanting to put us in the position of them. So there is often so much transference and countertransference from a psychoanalytic perspective that comes up where we might feel frustrated or annoyed or angry about something that the child is doing where they're trying to dominate over us. So they might be making a mess and then telling us to clean it up. They might be bossing us around the room, telling us to pick up 50 things and bring it over to them. In the beginning, so I'm just going to kind of show my evolution of my practice with this. In the very beginning, I would certainly follow along because I want the child to be in the lead. I want them to tell their story in their way, in their time. What I have learned in more recent years is really taking notice of what's coming up for me. Because again, if we lean into our tenets of CCPT around congruence, empathy, and unconditional positive regard, if I'm being bossed around and I feel irritated, I'm not able to be empathetic, congruent with unconditional positive regard if I'm irritated. So that is certainly things for us to take care of outside of play therapy, 100%. But I also take it as a very helpful marker and indicator for me to put a limit in place. Because I think that when I lose my ability to be present in the playroom, I've lost the child. This is just my opinion, you guys. Just disclaimer. I'm just putting it all out there. So what I like to do in those scenarios when I have a child that's bossing me around and telling me what to do and telling me to pick up 50 things is I might say, again, returning responsibility and say, that's something you can do in here because I'm not going to do it. I don't say that part. But I gently return it back and say, it's really important in here that you're in charge. But that's something you can do. That's something you can choose to do in here. That's something you can decide. So that's really sticking to our CCPT protocol with that, because I don't, and I lean into Gary Landreth's tenet with this, or his analogy, or I guess premise in child-centered play therapy being around facilitating a socially acceptable relationship. I don't want to replicate maladaptive relationships that exist outside of play therapy. Ta-da! So I might put a limit in if I feel like it's something that is impacting my ability to be congruent, not because it's about me, but in fact, what they're doing is telling me about their world. And so once I put that limit in, you often then see the emotional expression afterwards. And that's what I think is more important. So I will then go to the feelings. It's not about a power battle with the child where they're like, no, you do it. And I'm basically like, you do it. And we're going back and forth. I'm not doing that. I'm very much putting that limit in and then watching for their reaction, because once their reaction comes into play, then my job is to help enlarge in that meeting. So it's so you are so angry right now at me that I won't do the things that you need me to do. That's so frustrating for you. So then I'm actually going to a deeper meaning. I'm not just going back and forth with, that's something you can decide, that's something you can do, that's something you can choose. I'm not going in that dance. I immediately then want to enlarge in that meeting by going deeper. But I want to make sure that I have that relationship first to then do that. The silence one is certainly a good one in terms of kids presenting that way in the playroom. So you're letting me know right now that you just need some time, and you can let me know when you need me or you'd like me to engage with you. I'm very mindful of the fact that silence can often be a control thing as well. They are using, and I've had it described to me, that when children have very little decision making outside of the playroom. My apologies, if you're not on the YouTube, you wouldn't have seen I just scratched the microphone with my acrylic nail. Apologies, everyone. Sorry. Let me get back to my point. When we have children that are silent, it is often that they have no other decision making other than their verbal communication and their bodily functions. That is when you have a child that is truly in fight or flight, where they are just clinging to what is left within their control. So if you have a child that isn't talking to you or has their back to you, that is them trying to gain some of that external locus of control back within. So I might just say to them, you're just letting me know right now, you just need some time in here. You can decide what that looks like. So sometimes it just feels safer to do that. And so you just need some time, and, I'll be here when you're ready. So I very much show and enlarge that meaning once I have felt like I have that relationship with them, just to give a caveat. Certainly if that was like a first or second session where I had a child that had their back to me, who wasn't talking to me, I'm just watching their nonverbal cues. We know that 80% of communication is nonverbal. So there is plenty for me to track, even if I have a child that has their back to me. You're just taking some time to decide when you're ready. You just need some time before you want to or you choose to play with me. You are over there right now, taking your space, taking your time. You're playing with that right now, and you're going to let me know when you're ready. Like, I am just following. You are just looking at those now. You're just taking some time to have a look at that. You're over there. You've decided to stay in that part of the room, whatever it is that they're doing. I'm tracking for my life for children that are silent with their back to me. But it is one of those things we always talk about, right? When you start kind of your training journey, doing that own self-reflection. Self-reflection is always part of our practice, right? Whether you're training or not. But in the beginning, identifying, I guess, what are your touch points? What are the things that may activate you that might impact your ability to be congruent? A child with their back to me not saying a word doesn't bother me in the least, you guys. Really doesn't, because I'm kind of like 11 years in. I've seen it so many times. I'm like, they'll just take a minute. They'll be fine. I have a true confidence in that child and their capacity for growth. So it doesn't bother me. But, as a beginning play therapist, sorry to actually bring back to the audience that I'm talking to, if you are beginning in this phase, it could be very daunting for you to have a child that doesn't want to talk. From my perspective, in terms of my passion of working with kids, they are the kids that I can't wait to see their other side of themselves, because I know this silent rejecting kind of version where they've got their back to me and they're not talking to me is just a learned behavior. Not in the sense of like them, it's a maladaptive engagement with relationships, but it's actually that they have learned through repetition that it's not safe for me to talk. It's not safe for me to be myself, or it's too overwhelming, or I really doubt myself. And so I don't know how to begin a conversation, or I don't know how to relate to others. And so I stay silent and people do all the work for me. Or, I don't have to talk because other people will take over. And so I can't wait for that inner child of that child to come out, because I know that truly all children want to play and all children want to connect, and that they want to have themselves seen as good in the eyes of others. And so I want to help that child to bring their inner child out. So I got very philosophical at the end there. And poor Terry, who's probably listening to this going, my question was like something totally different. I hope that has somewhat answered your question, because I just went on a ramble there for about 20 minutes. Has that answered your question, Terry? You have to email me and tell me, because I am dying to know. Catherine was the other one. I'm going to give a special shout out to my girl, Catherine, woohoo, in Newcastle, in New South Wales. Hey, Catherine. she has a question for us as well. We have run out of time. I can't even believe I'm saying that. So I'm going to hold, Catherine, your question over to next week, because your question is just as important and I have so much to say about it as well. So Catherine was asking more around the post-COVID babies. So after one of our recent episodes about the COVID generation, what the post-COVID generation looks like. So I will absolutely answer your question next time because I have left it way too late at this point. I have to end this episode now, but I will carry it over and we'll do your question next week, Catherine. But that will actually give us time. If you are listening this week and you have a question, oh my God, send it through. Send it through. I would love to do like a whole episode next week on questions if we get enough. But if we've just got Catherine's, we'll just do Catherine's. That's totally fine as well. So we will make sure that we put in the notes of this episode our email address, but you can also direct message us. I think the younger generation calls it DM. Oh my God, you guys, I did like a head nod there that no one except the people on YouTube saw. Please feel free to reach out to us on our social media. We are at the Play Therapy Circle podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So you can find me there. I post daily on my adventures. So anyone that wants to follow along, please feel free to follow. Otherwise, we will put our email in the notes too, because we would love you to email us to reach out and send us through your questions. So a call out, I guess, for the next week for anyone who has questions. Please send them through. I hope that this episode has been helpful and useful for you. I just loved doing it. I can't believe it's an hour and I only got through one question. It's wild, but then also typical for me, right? I could talk about it all day. So thank you so much for listening. If you are interested in connecting with us and our Play Therapy Circle community, we have a free circle subscription. So we will leave the link in the description of this episode as well. If you would like to click on it and join us at the Play Therapy Circle subscription, we have our free community page, so you can join us there and ask questions with other CCPT practitioners, as well as lots of PD and training opportunities as well. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you everyone for being here. I hope you send through some questions. I can't wait to hear from all of you in our community. Thank you so much for supporting us internationally as well, all of our international listeners. If you would like a special shout out too next week, I'm happy to do that as well. That would be great. But thank you for your support. Please look after yourselves and each other this week. Be kind to yourselves. I've got a massive week coming up, but I do have a very fun and just kind of relaxing weekend ahead. So 4 more days, guys, until the weekend, and then I'm going to enjoy that. Thank you so much for listening. This episode has gone for an hour. Oh my God. I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you all again next week. Let's do it again next week. Bye. Thank you so much for being here for another episode of the Play Therapy Circle. If anything resonated with you today, I'd love it if you could follow the podcast, share it with a colleague, or leave a short review. It really helps others find our circle. And if you have a topic or question you'd love me to explore, I'd love to hear from you. This space is for you, and I want it to feel like a conversation. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, you belong here.